welcome in everybody and welcome to the AFC East Summit. You may not know who I am, but if you have watched the Nickel City Mafia or the Red, White, and Bills or even the Go Bills podcast, you know who I am. My name is Brett McDurphy, and I am one of the Bills contributors for the AFC East Summit, and I am joined by three other guys representing the entire AFC East. We have Keith, who is the Dolphins contributor. You have Jackson, who is the Jets contributor. And you have Chris, who is a part of Pats Nation. And we're going to talk about the hidden factors for the AFC East and one player on offense, one player on defense that's going to help each team get to the title for the AFC East. So without further ado, let me introduce the guys that we have here on the panel. We'll start with Keith. Keith, how are you doing today, buddy?
All right, man. How you doing, man? It's good to work with you.
It's great to work with you too, man. It's great to meet you as well. I watched another show that you did with the Nickel City Mafia. Man, you rocked it out there.
I'm really liking what you guys are doing on this channel. I'm really liking this AFC Summit, mixing it up with all you opposing teams fans. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has. And it's great to have guys that can represent each team. We started this off where it was pretty much like Jake and myself representing the other teams in the AFC East. And we don't know the knowledge that you guys know. You guys are the ones that watch the shows. You watch every single game for your teams. We don't watch the games necessarily. We watch the Bills games. So we kind of have that Bills side of it that we're going to talk about. And now we have somebody that can represent the team that's a diehard fan. And it's great to see, and it's great to have you guys all a part of it. Let me turn it over to Jackson. Jackson, man, I know that you're a Jets fan. Are you from I want to say New York, but it's not New York. It's actually New Jersey. Are you from New Jersey?
No, so I was actually from Southern California, and my dad grew up back east, and his mom was a diehard Yankees fan, and his dad was a diehard Jets fan. So that's where I get the Yankees and Jets from.
That's awesome, man. And yeah. Keith, where were you? Were you born and raised in Miami, or
No, I wasn't. I was kind of an Air Force brat growing up. So I was born in England, actually. That's where my parents met. And then we moved to Southern California, and we moved to New Jersey, and we moved to Northern California. So I've kind of been all over. So when I first started watching football, we were living in Northern California. And I became a Dolphins fan. I guess it was, my dad put a catalog in front of me and said, pick whatever team you want. And I chose the Dolphins. And I haven't looked back since. I'm living in the Philly area right now.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to be a Dolphins fan in the Philly area. So
no, it's not easy. You get a lot of, you catch a lot of crap for that.
Oh, yeah. I imagine you do. And Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy. How you doing today?
Doing good. It's another beautiful day. Can't complain. The sun's shining, and I'm on the right side of the dirt. So, always happy to be here with you guys. Talking some football. So I always enjoy this as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right on that. And a couple of years ago, we'd be talking about the domination that the Patriots are doing, and now the tides have kind of turned. We got some other teams that are taking over the division right now after Tom Brady left the Patriots. Now we can talk about a couple of other teams that are competitive now, and I feel like the division is pretty much anybody's to win.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, it really comes down to the 18th game of the year, so I think that's going to be something that I'm looking forward to this year, and I think it's going to be a very tight race compared to the last couple of years where the Bills have won it. So,
yeah, I think it's the perfect time to actually get something like this going in AFC Summit because all four teams in the division have legitimate playoff aspirations. So,
completely agree with you.
Ultimately, I think the Patriots are going to come out on top this year, but I might be a little biased,
Hey,
maybe a little. Glad you're allowing for that possibility, Chris.
Let's keep the trash talk to around September time, guys. Okay, come on. We're a little early on that, so we haven't even made it to training camp yet, but we're getting there pretty close. But let's talk about our X factors for each team. Now, each person is going to have one person on the offensive side, one person on the defensive side. You'll have 2 minutes to talk about your offensive player, and then once you do your offensive player, I'll turn it over to everybody. We'll talk about that offensive player that you pick. Talk about if you agree or you disagree with their choice. If you think that there's somebody else on the team that could be another X factor for them, let us know your thoughts. And don't forget, guys, if you're watching the show on YouTube, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We will go over the comments as well. So, Keith, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. Talk about your first X factor on offense for the Miami Dolphins.
Okay, well, my X factor on the Dolphins on offense is Austin Jackson. He's slated to be their right tackle this season, and he's had a very up and down career thus far. Mostly down. He's been injured a lot. His play has been subpar, but he's always shown the potential to be a stalwart on the right side. He's shown that potential. Going into his fourth season, he's only 23 years old, and I'm really hoping he can lock down the right side of the line for the Dolphins. Next to him is Robert Hunt, who's been rock solid. He just needs a solid running mate right next to him. Now, he's my X factor because Tua, his injury concerns have been well documented, right? And as a left-handed quarterback, Austin Jackson is protecting Tua's blind side by blocking on the right side at right tackle. So what I'm looking for from Austin Jackson is a solid season, just a solid season where he can make Tua more comfortable in the pocket and protect Tua's blind side, to the point where Tua is able to do his thing and get the ball to the multiple weapons on the Dolphins. We've talked about Tyreek Hill and we've talked about Jalen Waddle and all the Dolphins' weapons. But what it comes down to is the Dolphins need to solidify this offensive line to really reach their true potential as an offense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good choice. I'm going to turn it over to Chris first to talk about Austin Jackson and let me know his thoughts on Austin.
You know what? I can't say I pay too much attention to the Dolphins, but from one thing we could say, speaking on the Dolphins, we did notice that Tua took a lot of hits last season. So
Yeah.
I do respect the pick of having a good right tackle, someone to guard Tua's blind side, so he doesn't take those heavy hits. So I agree with your pick, because honestly, Tua's season is depending on how much protection he has. Can he get that ball out? Because there was a lot of quick snaps, a lot of quick throws last year. So let's see if he can actually let that offense run wild and get down the field this year. Let's see if they can protect him long enough to make big plays. He has the weapons, he has the speed. So let's see what they can do.
Absolutely,
completely agree with you, Jackson. Your thoughts, man?
Just like Chris, I haven't heard about that player, but I 100% agree. Protection for Tua is going to be his number one thing because he's one hard hit away from it to his head from retiring. So they need to do everything in their power to keep his feet upright and keep him healthy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that I would say Austin Jackson is going to be an X factor for the Miami Dolphins. I'm a little surprised that they didn't move Teron Armstead over to the other side just to maybe just – I know that he's a left tackle. I know that he played for the Saints for a long time. But just to see a little bit of a difference in just Tua not getting hit as much. Now, a player that I was thinking of that could be an X factor for the Miami Dolphins would be Braxton Berrios, just because I think that the teams are going to start to put some double coverage on Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So I was thinking about the middle of the field, and you guys are kind of similar to the Buffalo Bills as well, where you have a guy on the outside in Tyreek Hill who represents the Stephon Diggs for our offense, and you have Jalen Waddle, who's right now a lot better than Gabe Davis is. But you have two weapons on the outside that if you put them in single coverage, they're going to burn almost any other team. You give them some double coverage and you disguise coverages with them, you're going to see where Tua's going to have to get the ball out a little bit earlier. And I think that's something that can, if he gets the ball out earlier and gets it to his weapons, you're going to see where he's not going to take as many hits.
Yeah.
But I do respect the fact that you said a right tackle, because Tua has taken a ton of hits. And like everybody just said, where if Tua has one more hit to his head, I mean, I know that Jake said it before. It could be it.
Yeah.
Jake said it before. He's had a ton of concussions. He says that he has, he he swears that he has. That I can't think of what it's called now, but
CT.
I couldn't even think of what it's called. I was thinking of CBD. I don't know why I was thinking of CBD.
As far as which receiver would be the Dolphins' X factor, I'd actually give it to Chosen Anderson right now. Robbie Chosen Anderson. He's another speedster. He's another guy that's going to open up the middle of the field. And by all accounts, he's having a great camp right now. He's really impressing all the coaches and Tua and everybody. I think Barrios is going to be there. He's solid. He's going to run great routes and everything. But I think Anderson could be the real X factor in the receiving core for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and there was a question that a Bills fan had for you, Keith, which is Austin Jackson coming off of an injury?
Yes, he is. He was injured pretty much all of last season. He's just had rotten luck when it comes to injuries. I look at a lot of players like that early in their careers. They just can't get off that injured list. And I think part of that is due to the fact that Austin Jackson was 20 years old when he played his first NFL game. He was just super young. And I don't think he had grown into his body completely yet. So it's really time for him to show what he's got. He'll be 24 by the start of the season. So it's time.
Yeah, if you didn't see that comment, there's a funny comment that Jake made. He said he had about 500 concussions, so it's a great excuse for his wife to have an issue with that. But, man, I agree with you there 100%. Keith, who is your second player that you have, your defensive player this time for the Miami Dolphins?
Well, a lot's been made of the Dolphins secondary. A lot, Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard and Javon Holland. And the guys coming off injury like Nick Needham and Trill Williams, who incidentally was going to be my X factor before I reconsidered. But, Deshaun Elliott as safety. And then the defensive line, you got Jalen Phillips, linebacker. You've got Bradley Chubb. You've got Christian Wilkins. A lot has been made of those two levels of defense, but not a lot has been talked about the middle of the Dolphins defense. And that's where I'm looking for David Long, their new starting linebacker from the Tennessee Titans to really take the Dolphins defense to the next level. I was actually watching a highlight video of him earlier on today where he was just making so many plays behind the line of scrimmage, slashing through gaps and hitting running backs in the backfield. He put Saquon Barkley on his back on one play before Saquon Barkley even knew what hit him. And that's the kind of player that David Long can be. He's also great in coverage in the middle of the field. So when I'm looking at David Long, I'm looking at a guy who's going to really be the thumper, the middle linebacker that the Dolphins have been needing for a long time now. They've had Jerome Baker, guys like that. But what they need is a guy who's going to be good in coverage and solid against the run. So he's my X factor for the Dolphins defense.
I think this is a really good choice, Keith. I think that you guys got to steal in the free agency.
Yeah,
because
really
he's somebody that I wanted the Bills to go after, and I was thinking if we could move him over to middle linebacker, maybe have him play the Tremaine Edmonds role. I thought that he would fit exactly what Buffalo was missing last year, which was somebody that could be that thumper that comes in. He can play in coverage very well, but he can hit the gaps and get into the backfield and make plays, especially for running backs, which is something that Buffalo kind of has struggled with the past couple of years, where you haven't seen a lot of tackles for loss in the linebacker department. So I was looking forward to maybe him coming over to Buffalo, but I think he's going to be
pretty glad he didn't.
he's going to be a very big asset for the Dolphins, and I think that he's going to come over and he's going to be the exact player that you needed, and somebody that you look at the last couple of years for the Dolphins, you haven't had that linebacker that can really change the game. Now you have another guy that can bring the speed. He can go from one tackle to the other tackle, and he can cover the whole entire field. And that's something that you really needed. He reminds me a lot of a Luke Kuechly type of player.
Yeah. He's a little smaller and he's a little more injury prone than Luke Kuechly was. The last couple of seasons, the Dolphins have had Elandon Roberts, who Chris probably knows very well. And he was okay. He was solid, but he doesn't have the speed or athleticism that a David Long does.
Right. Jackson, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. let me know your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because we know they got Bradley Chubb, they got Jaden Phillips, they got a good D line. They just traded for Ramsey. They got Xavier Howard, so they got their line and secondary pretty locked up. So I think what did come down to their linebackers, where they needed to see improvement, which they went out in free agency and they got that player, and it could help their defense out a lot. And Vic Fangio, I think he's going to be a big addition for that defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there with Vic Fangio coming over. I did like Josh Boyer. Don't get me wrong. I thought that he was pretty good. I didn't think that he took the defense to the next edge. I think he kind of held back Bradley Chubb a little bit and a couple of other guys. So I think this is going to be a big difference.
I'm sorry, man. I think when your defense becomes too reliant on the blitz, then it's a flawed defense, and that was kind of Josh Boyer's biggest. That was my biggest issue with Josh Boyer's defense.
Yeah, I completely agree. Chris, let me know your thoughts, man.
You know what? I agree. I agree with the picks that Keith's got going on, especially when you look at the Dolphins defense. When you got players like Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard running as your backs on the edge, or on the outside rather, the offense is going to look to adjust because those are two lockdown corners that you don't want to throw anywhere near. So of course they're going to look to attack those linebackers, and so if they can pick, so that's a good pickup right there because now you pretty much have that whole field locked up. So it's going to be really hard for any type of team to move the ball against these Dolphins. So it's going to really be interesting to see how this defense congeals together. So that was a great pickup for the guys. So
yeah,
I agree with it 100%.
Yeah.
Now it's not going to be easy to run on the Dolphins anymore. So that was one of the things that teams could do the last couple of years was run on the Dolphins, especially with Josh Allen. You saw it a couple of times last year where Josh can escape and he was able to get the first downs. Now I think it's going to be a little bit more tough with Long in the middle, and I think if he tries to hurdle him, I think it's going to end badly for Allen.
Well, the Dolphins drafted Channing Tindall out of Georgia last season in the 3rd round, and they were hoping he was going to become that spy for Josh Allen. Actually, that was one of the things that they were saying at his introductory press conference, and he just didn't turn into that player. I think he was thinking a little too much out in the field, and he didn't really get many defensive snaps. So, Josh Allen, guys like Josh Allen, are a big reason why the Dolphins went out and got themselves a middle linebacker like this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you with your offensive player that you have for the New England Patriots. And I'm interested to see who you're going to pick because there's a few guys that came into the Patriots this year. You got Juju, you have Mike Gesicki as well. Are you going to pick one of those guys, or do you have a new guy that you're going to pick?
I went a little different direction, because I was thinking about going Mac Jones, of course, because he's pretty much the captain of the ship. So any type of production we see out of Juju or our tight ends is going to solely depend on him. But I think the direction I really want to go in is my X factor for our offense is definitely going to be either Pierre Strong or Kevin Harris, our running backs that have been there. So losing Damian Harris to the Bills, of course, we don't have that 1-2 combo. Ramondre Stevenson definitely stepped up last season. He showed that he could be the guy to lead the offense, but he won't be able to do it all. So who's going to earn that change of pace running back, that RB2 that's going to go along with him? So I'm really interested to see that one. There were so many different directions you could go. Like you said, Juju, Devontae Parker, he looks like he's finally back healthy. Is he still going to be a threat? He spent a lot of time on injury reserve with the Dolphins, so it was really unfortunate. We have, what's his name? Tyquan, what is his name? The new one. Yeah, Tyquan Thornton. Is he gonna, we have so many different players on this Patriots offense. It's kind of hard to really choose, but I think I'm gonna go with our running back, Pierre Strong Jr. See what type of season he has this year, and who's gonna step up and kind of take that pressure off of Mac Jones if he can't move the ball offensively, because we did see a big drop in his production over the last season. Yards went down, touchdowns went down, so so we might need to continue that run-first offense that the Patriots have been implementing the past season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think that a lot of the pressure can be taken off of Mac Jones by having a really good run game, and I think this is something that there's a lot of inconsistency last year with the run game. There's a couple of games where Damian Harris had really good games, where Ramondre Stevenson had some good games, but I think it really came down to was there's some injuries, and then it was just you couldn't get the 1-2 you needed. And I think now with Pierre Strong and Ramondre Stevenson, I think it's going to be a really good balance. I was a little bit surprised that you guys cut Robinson. That was one thing that really surprised me early on, especially not even giving him a shot in training camp. But I think you have 3 good running backs. You have Ty Montgomery as well, who's going to be a third running back for you guys. He can be a really big asset for you, especially in the in kick returns as well. Now, I know you have another guy who you picked up last year who was I can't think of his first name, but I know it's Jones. 25 for you guys, but
Jackson Jones.
He was a kick returner last year. He had the a kick return for a touchdown. I can't think of who it is, but Jake will know. I know for sure Jake will know. But he had a really big game for you guys. He came from Houston. He was drafted for you guys. Came from Houston. He was supposed to play
Jonathan Jones.
I think maybe it's Jonathan Jones, but it doesn't sound Marcus Jones.
Jack Jones, Jonathan Jones.
Marcus Jones.
Marcus Jones, okay.
So I was thinking of him, but when he came in and he played running back for you guys, I wasn't expecting that either. So, I mean, I would say this is a really good weapon for you guys, and I think that if you just take a little bit of the pressure off of Mac, it could be a very big thing that can help the offense. And now you have a offensive coordinator that comes in who actually has experience in the NFL and didn't play. He wasn't a defensive coordinator. So I think now without having 2 guys that are covering the offense and Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, now you have one guy that can just be in his ear. He can talk to him and fix everything. And for Mac Jones, it's going to really help too. Keith, what are your thoughts, man?
I think that's a great pick by Chris there. The Patriots have always done a running back by committee. You know, I mean, basically since Corey Dillon left back in the early 2000s, I guess it was. You know, I've always said this in my fantasy football seasons. Bill Belichick hates your fantasy football team. He absolutely hates them. So, and you know, whatever running back you think is going to get the lion's share of the carries that day, he isn't. You know, Rex Burkhead used to go off for the Patriots.
Yeah.
You know, when you least expect it. So, you know, giving Ramondre Stevenson a running mate is a really good idea. And I think Pierre Strong he's probably going to do some good things for the Patriots this year.
Yeah, I agree. Jackson, I'm going to open it up to you, man.
I like those picks, but just to switch things up, I'm going to go Mike Gesicki. I think having that big body at the tight end is going to be a huge thing for Mac Jones. Those seam routes, those short in routes, those short slant routes, that's going to be a big red zone threat. That could help Mac out a lot, especially for someone who doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. If you could find that reliable tight end where you know you have that safety check, that safety net, that could be a big help for Mac.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one, Jackson, too, because last year you had Hunter Henry, you had Jonnu Smith. Both of them really didn't do anything for you guys. I mean, I know that of the 2, Hunter Henry was obviously the better tight end, but it just seems like you didn't have that combo that you've had in the past where you had a Rob Gronkowski that you can count on 100% to get you that first down. Now it's kind of what player is going to get you the first down. You didn't really have an offensive weapon necessarily that teams had to fear. So now you bring in Juju Smith, who can take a little bit of the pressure off of the other wide receivers. You have Mike Gesicki, who's a proven tight end in the NFL. I know last year he didn't have the best year, but I don't put that on Gesicki. I put that more on the offense for the Miami Dolphins having too many weapons around them, and they're trying to get the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And Gesicki was the 3rd option, sometimes even the 4th option for Tua. So I don't take that on him. And it's a good thing that he moved on from the Dolphins, because I didn't think that he was necessarily going to get the amount of touches that he's going to get from the
He wasn't a fit, Brett. He wasn't a fit for their offense.
Was not a fit. And now, I mean, one thing that surprised me a little bit about the Dolphins, I'll say this real quick, is the fact that the Dolphins didn't go after a tight end in the draft, which surprised me quite a bit because I thought for sure, I thought for sure you'd go after Washington or Luke Musgrave. I thought one of those guys was going to be a really good fit for you. And there's some guys that were on the board that you didn't take, which I thought for sure was, it was
no, I agree. I agree completely with you, Brett. I wanted them to take a tight end. I was surprised they didn't. They took Higgins in the 6th round. He's a converted wide receiver. So basically what that means was he's too slow to play wide receiver in the NFL. Let's see if he can. So he's a project. He's going to be a guy that they're going to try to, mold into a tight end over the next few seasons. But right now they don't have a tight end, and Gesicki wasn't a fit. But to your point, Jackson, Gesicki is a great pick for the Patriots because Patriots are looking to revamp their receiving core, and Gesicki is a great receiving tight end. And Belichick has proven that he knows how to use them. So it was a great pickup by the Patriots.
Let's bring up that comment by Joe. I like his last comment, by the way.
This one here?
Yeah, that's the right there.
Yeah.
I also agree with that, Joe. I don't care who's playing on New Jersey. They're not going to be good, which is why I have both New Jersey and Miami finishing 8 and 9 this year, and the Patriots finishing second in the division. But
that was my best friend, a Patriots fan, commenting right there.
Okay.
So he's on your side, Chris.
Yeah, I like him. I've been seeing what he's saying. I like him. But honestly, there was a couple of ways I could have went with my offensive X factor. Like I said, I would have went with Mac Jones because honestly, his inability to move the ball was a lot of the root of our offensive struggles last year. So I'm really looking forward to see if he can really step into those shoes and fill that role as a leader, and if he can, get our offense going. Because with an actual offensive coordinator, I want to see if we can just open it up. We could take our pressure off our running backs and we could just air it out. Get these guys moving. So see how Juju performs. I think he has big play potential. He's always been on teams that I just think he was underutilized. So can Juju be the wide receiver one that we need? So many different picks and so many different directions to go. But
I'll say this, Chris. I think Juju is more of a Robin than a Batman. I don't think he's a number one receiver. I think he's much better suited to being that number 2 option. And great number 2 option. But I don't see him as the number 1 option. I think that's why the Patriots have been kicking the tires on DeAndre Hopkins so hard.
Yeah, and that's why I think that that also with getting Juju, I mean, you look at his best seasons that he had in his career is next to Antonio Brown, in my opinion. Yeah. I would say that. And Antonio Brown, I mean, yes, he turned into a clown and not the best person anymore. But I mean, I would agree with you there, and I think that the DeAndre Hopkins rumors are very good for the Patriots. It adds another dynamic playmaker that Mac Jones has needed for years. And you guys should have gone after a ton of different wide receivers by trade. And I'm surprised that Bill Belichick hasn't pulled the trigger on one of the wide receivers. And I'm also surprised not only that the Patriots didn't go after a wide receiver by trade, but how come they haven't gone after a big-name receiver in the draft recently? So
the Patriots have always been a team that never really focuses primarily on offense. The offense kind of comes together. If you look at our organization as a whole, we've only had, I want to say one big name wide receiver and Randy Moss. Besides that, all of the guys kind of just were system players who made names for themselves, Julian Edelman, Gronk, all these guys who made names for themselves over the years. So I can't think of one big name receiver that we just went out there and got, But defense, we've always focused on defense, and that is, our the defense comes, then the offense eventually gets rolling. So, so I'm looking forward to it.
Great point.
And I have a follow-up question for you, Chris.
Yes.
Before I turn it over to Jackson, my question is, what is going to be the difference between last year for the offensive side? What are you expecting to be different from Joe Judge and Matt Patricia's offense to Bill O'Brien?
I think Bill O'Brien, he's been here before. Bill O'Brien knows what he's looking for. I think that a lot of the players fit his scheme too, especially when I think about Tyquan Thornton. He fits the scheme of like someone like a Will Fuller. One of those slot receivers that are really quick. So I'm looking forward to just seeing how he can move that offense and get those guys out, in open space and just have them, getting open and making, put Mac in a position to make plays. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And I want to say for my defensive X factor, I picked Kyle Duggar, because on our defense we did lose the veteran presence of Devin McCourty.
Yep.
So our safety is kind of open, up for grabs. So he's going to have to really step up and be the lead. Who they decide to be their number 2 is still up in the air. They're maybe looking at Joshua Bledsoe, but it's still kind of not definite who's going to be our second DB that they have up there. But I know for sure the league is getting so much faster. These guys are, quick, really skilled. Can he will he be able to make the plays on defense to get those to stuff the run and also still make sure guys don't get over the top? So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Kyle Duggar this year. So he's going to be my defensive X factor.
Yeah, and this is third year coming into the NFL. And I feel like the expectations now are for him to take over for Devin McCourty, be that big-time playmaker that they were hoping he was going to be. And I'll tell you what, the Patriots stole him away from Buffalo because I felt like he was the player that could come into the Bills and he could really be that guy that he makes a difference in the defense.
Yes.
And I thought for sure he would be that he could play the corner position or he could play the safety and he could be that versatile player. But I really think that if he comes in and he can make a big impact on the game, that he will be a reason that the Patriots are going to be in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll turn it over to Keith first, and then I'll turn it over to Jackson. Keith, let me know your thoughts on this.
Kyle Duggar's a great choice, Chris. Kyle Duggar's a budding star. He's got the feel of a guy, much like Jalen Phillips on the Dolphins, of a guy who's just really ready to pop off and do some really great things in this league. So when I was looking at defensive X factor for the Patriots, Kyle Duggar was the name that I was looking at myself.
All right.
Yep. And Jackson?
I'm going to disagree with you guys. I think Christian Gonzalez is going to be a bigger X factor. With Jack Jones' legal issues, we don't know if how long he'll be suspended for, if he'll miss the whole season. But we know Belichick has always had that cornerback one. He's that Stephon Gilmore. I'm forgetting his name, the big corner who just signed with the Chargers a couple years ago. And then you had Jack Jones. And in this division, you got Garrett Wilson, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Waddle, you got Diggs. You need that cornerback one to try to lock down that wide receiver one. So I think Christian Gonzalez is going to have to step up and have a big year as a rookie.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Christian Gonzalez. But I think it's going to come down to does Belichick trust having a rookie out there? Yeah. And that's where I think that, you hear the saying, and it's gone around the NFL for a long time. You put rookies out there, you're going to get fired. And that's why I don't think that necessarily Christian Gonzalez is going to start right away. I think there's going to be some growing pains. He's going to start off. I think he's going to start off hot. I really do. But then I think towards the middle of the year, he's going to cool down quite a bit. And there's going to be a little bit of a slump, and then he'll be back to himself towards the playoffs. So
he's also coming from the Pac-12, Brett.
Yeah.
And the Pac-12, while they are a great passing league, they don't run pro-style offenses out west out there. So, you're not talking about a cornerback from Alabama or Georgia, guys that are running pro-style defenses against pro-style offenses. Christian Gonzalez is going to have some growing pains. And I think he's going to be – his physical traits are off the charts. He's going to be a really good corner in this league, but he needs to learn for a little while.
Yeah, we still got a couple players. We still got players like Jalen Mill, Jack Jones, Jonathan Jones, players that he can sit behind. And so while he is learning, but I think eventually he'll maybe get in the offense, get in that defense, and make an impact. But I don't see it happening right away. It's like a slow acclimation to the speed of the NFL.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. Let me turn it over to Jackson though. For your offensive and defensive player, this is going to be interesting because you guys, on paper, you're supposed to be the Super Bowl champions already. We should just hand you over the crown. Let's just give you, not yet. we'll give you the Lombardi Trophy. I mean, I swear everybody and their grandmothers, their great grandparents, they have an Aaron Rodgers jersey already. I've heard there's funerals with Aaron Rodgers jerseys, with people being buried in Aaron Rodgers jerseys. So let me know who your offensive player for the Super Bowl champion, New York Jets, is going to be.
Well, before I say that, I just gotta say I've seen Trevor Siemian, Bryce Petty, Sam Darnold. Like I've seen some horrible quarterback plays. So I think just getting Rodgers has got us all fired up. But
Well, it should.
I'll go with offensive X factor. It was a hard choice, but with Breece Hall coming off ACL tear, week 1 is going to be 10, 11 months after surgery. So I don't think he's going to be back to Breece Hall until week 7, 8. So I'm going to go with Zonovan Knight. Zonovan Knight was an undrafted free agent last year. He played in 4 games last year. His first 2 games, he was averaging over 5 yards a carry, but that was against the Vikings and the Bears. And then the next 2 games against the Seahawks and the Dolphins, he averaged about 1.5, 2 yards per carry. So I'm going to need a big Zonovan Knight year. And we know Aaron Rodgers loves those checkdowns. He loves audibles for blocking. So Zonovan Knight's going to be a big X factor for us.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Keith first.
I think that's a good pick. Somebody has to carry the rock for him while Breece Hall recovers. There's a number of guys on the Jets that especially the offense, that would have been good choices. My personal one would have been Mecole Hardman. I love the way he opens up the offense with his speed. He takes the top off of defenses and makes it so that you can't play everybody close to the box. And that's just going to make Aaron Rodgers even more lethal. But Zonovan Knight, good choice. I like it.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree with that pick because you got to think about where Aaron Rodgers came from. He in the offense he had in Green Bay with his two really good receivers, and Aaron Jones, and the second one I can't remember his name.
AJ Dillon.
Yeah, AJ Dillon. So so he's gonna need those fallback options moving forward in New Jersey or New York rather. So so I think that's a good pick right there.
Yeah, and Hackett and Rodgers, they love those running back tandems. So they need that running back 2 to step up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotta get used to the offense and flow in his offense like he did in Green Bay.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this left and right, and I was thinking about who could be the offensive factor, and I disagree with you on this one. I think Tyler Conklin is going to be a bigger weapon for you guys than anybody ever thinks. The one thing that the Packers didn't have the last few years was a reliable tight end. And you know how Aaron Rodgers likes his tight ends. You will go back to the beginning when you had Jermichael Finley. And he lost Jermichael Finley. They brought over Jimmy Graham for a couple of years. And Jimmy Graham had a couple of good years. But after that, they really didn't have another weapon at the tight end position. And I think now with a guy in Tyler Conklin, he can be that offensive weapon. He can take a little bit of pressure off of Garrett Wilson. He can also take some pressure off of the running backs as well. But I think that you're going to see where Aaron Rodgers is going to look for Tyler Conklin quite a bit. And I mean, you could say Garrett Wilson, you could say everybody else, but I think that he's going to be the one that from last year to this year, he's going to make a big time jump. And I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl tight end in this league.
I agree with that, especially going back to Robert Tonyan's years with Hackett and Rodgers. He had 10-plus touchdowns a couple years. They love that tight end check down and that tight end seam route and that crossing route. So, he's in for a big year.
I was going to mention Tanya. I thought Tanya was a pretty good tight end for Green Bay. I just thought he was underutilized. I know Green Bay had some struggles for the past few years, but I think it's just because of Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't loving football. He said last year he had found his love for football. With all the drugs he was doing. So, but
Tanya got hurt. A couple years ago, and he's had a hard time coming back from that. But prior to that, Rodgers and Tonyan hooked up a lot. But I agree with you, Brett. Rodgers loves his tight ends. Going back to Jermichael Finley and Jared Cook and Jimmy Graham. Rodgers looks for his tight ends a lot. Tyler Conklin's a pretty good pick by you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think about him.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, gosh, Aaron Rodgers, you know who he likes, and I'll tell you right now, Jake just said it, great PPR streaming option for fantasy too. That's exactly what I was about to say. I was about to say, if you're in a league right now and you're looking to draft a tight end and you're looking for a sleeper, go after Tyler Conklin, because I strongly believe that he will be a top 10, if not a top 5 tight end this year.
I'm good, Brett. I'm not going to draft.
Yeah. Listen, I would say
no
tight
AFC
ends.
players on my team.
Yeah, tight ends in fantasy football league are not worth it unless you got Travis Kelce.
I'm going after Dawson Knox. I'm going after Dalton Kincaid. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to go after them. But before I go after them, I'm going after Mark Andrews. I'm going after Travis Kelce. The big names. I'm going after even Darren Waller.
I don't think there's any going to be any AFC East tight ends on my team this year. The Dolphins tight ends suck, and I'm not taking any of your tight ends. So,
I think you'd be smart if you picked up somebody from the Patriots.
I think you'll be surprised. Trust me. But yeah, Jackson, turn it over to your defensive player for the Jets.
So as we all know, we all got a tough schedule. We got to play Tua twice. We got to play Josh Allen twice. We got to play Patrick Mahomes. We got to play Jalen Hurts. A bunch of other good guys. So I got to go Tony Adams, our undrafted free safety from a couple years ago. He is our only true free safety on our roster right now. We have 2 strong safeties, Adrian Amos and Jordan Whitehead. But Tony Adams, he's going to need to step up, and he's going to need to play good, because we're going to need that deep coverage safety playing all these great QBs.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Chris, go ahead with your thoughts.
I'm just going to agree, because the Jets really weren't a team I locked in on last year, so I don't have too much opinions on them. But I know
Tony Adams, he didn't play much. He only played the last 2 games of the year.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I know they did. I know the Jets had a lot of struggles last year, especially when it came to injuries. So, it'll be interesting to see how they all perform this year. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how Tony Adams does. I'll pay attention this year.
Now, it's going to be interesting to see, especially after Chuck Clark was lost for the season. And that's something that I'm kind of breaking the news a little bit earlier than we're thinking of. I know we have some around the AFC East news that we're going to talk about later on, but the news of Chuck Clark, and this is a great segue into it. You have the same day they signed Adrian Amos, and I think that this is a move where he can fill in for the Chuck Clark, but I don't think he's going to be the same player as Chuck Clark. So
that was devastating news. That was hard to hear.
But I think that that Adams can step up and become a really good player for the Jets. I was thinking of a couple of names, though. Obviously, the big names that come to mind, you can talk about almost anybody on that defensive line. But I do think that DJ Reed is going to be the guy that I think is going to be a hidden X factor. He's been very good the last couple of years, but, putting him on number 2 wide receivers, I think – if he can keep up what he was doing last year and maybe take it to the next level, and he can lock down the number 2 wide receivers, you're going to be in a really good position to make a deep run into the playoffs. He was very good, but he just needed to take it to that next level. And, his coverage, lights out. But he needs to get some more interceptions behind him. That's the thing that I want to see from Reed. But other than that, I think you guys have a really good secondary. I'd say number 4 or 5 in the AFC East. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But I am looking forward to see how Aaron Rodgers continues to build on his chemistry with Alan Lazard now that they both moved over from Green Bay. So that's going to be very interesting, because I think as far as Green Bay, we know that we've seen their wide receivers and their offense kind of dwindle. And, Aaron Rodgers had a lack of options moving, toward the last few seasons. But I know Alan Lazard was sort of stepping up to be that guy. So I'm very interested to see how he'll do in New York.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm excited because Allen Lazard is not a number one. He's not even a number two in my opinion. He's a good number three. So I think he's gonna be slotted in perfectly with this offense. But it'll be interesting to see how that chemistry builds.
When it really comes to the whole debate of wide receiver ones, I want to say there's only so many in the NFL at this point. There's not a lot of wide receiver ones who really take over a team. I mean, we got Tyreek Hill, you got DeAndre Hopkins,
Justin
Devontae
Jefferson.
Adams, Justin Jefferson, and it's kind of hard to find wide receiver ones these days. That you can, especially when it comes to fantasy football, these guys are going to produce and you can trust.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I mean, you can go 4th, 5th round and find a really good wide receiver one for your team. So it's hard because, you could go after guys like, T. Higgins, who, while he's not number one, wide receiver, he's a good number 2 wide receiver, but he can be a number 1 wide receiver on your team.
Yeah.
He
can be a number 1 wide receiver. He's going to leave the Bengals in all likelihood because they're not going to be able to pay both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So, he's a guy that's going to be a wide receiver 1 on, another team. As far as Tony Adams goes for Jackson, that's a pick that I didn't see coming, to be honest with you. I thought you were going to, I like the pick. I think you're going to need some help at safety. As far, once Chark Clark went down, that was pretty devastating for you guys. I was looking more towards Ashton Davis, though. I was wondering what's going on with him, because you guys drafted him. He was supposed to be really good for you, and it just hasn't really panned out thus far.
He's a good special teamers, but he's due 3.2 million. So I personally believe he's gonna be a training camp cut.
Okay, fair enough.
He's not good at tackling. He's not good at pursuit. He's not good in coverage. He's a good special teamers, but for $3 million, he just hasn't panned out.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody says, you guys have on paper, you're the Super Bowl champions. So it's going to be.
I don't know who says that.
I mean, hey, listen, Colin Cowherd. I've heard Stephen A. Smith say it. I've heard, pretty much everybody say it. The New York Times is writing about it right now. Yeah, they already have their Super Bowl champion shirts out.
Listen, this is that horrible time of the year where there's besides football, besides golf and baseball, there's no real sports on. So everything that they talk about in sports world is pure speculation. So that's what I see.
Exactly, and it's all about the hype. That's the thing.
Yes.
They try and hype every little thing. They're talking. I mean, right now, what time of the year is it? For football, what team are they talking about the most?
Yeah, the Jets, because that's the only one that really made the biggest offseason move with Aaron Rodgers,
The Jets, or for the NFC, who is it? You'd be surprised. It's the Cowboys. Everybody's talking about the Cowboys. Yeah, they'll talk about Dak Prescott.
Everybody always talks about the Cowboys.
That's normal. That is normal. But
I like the Cowboys, honestly.
How much time have you seen where on like Good Morning Football or even NFL Live? How much time do they spend on the Cowboys? Versus how much time do they spend on the Bills or the Dolphins or the Patriots? Before when Tom Brady was with the Patriots, they spent a lot of time on them because they were the hot team. But versus right now, they're not spending a lot of time on the Dolphins or the Bills or the Jets. The Jets now they kind of are, but even the Patriots, I mean, they're not spending a lot of time on them. So
it would be nice at the end of the season.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see. But Jackson, I know you had a question.
Yeah. So as a Bills fan, we know they've won the past 2 years. So I just wanted to get a Bills perspective. Who has the best chance in AFC East to overtake them?
Hey, that's a really good question. I like that one. I mean, I will say this. I think it's going to come down to a few games for each team. I think that the Patriots can surprise some people. I really do. I think, I have a lot of fans that are Patriots fans, and I'll say this. They can, if they get the offense going and they can put up more than 20 points a game, they'll be a good team. But the problem with the Patriots the last couple of years is that they weren't able to put up the amount of points where they can compete with other teams. They didn't have an offensive weapon that they can count on him to go down the field. And I'm sorry to say this, but Mac Jones struggled quite a bit too. So if Mac can take it to the next level, he can be the player that the Patriots want him to be, then he's going to keep him in games. Now, he was a really good quarterback for you guys. He just hasn't gotten it to where, he's taking it to the next level. And if he does, really good things are going to happen. The Jets, everything's good on paper. Don't get me wrong. You got the quarterback now. You have the running backs. You have everything that you need to dethrone the Bills. But what it comes down to is, can they have the continuity with their team? And that's one thing that concerns me quite a bit for the Jets. I don't think that the Jets right now, from what I'm seeing, are going to dethrone the Bills. And I need to see a lot more out of Aaron Rodgers too. Rodgers had a down season as well. So I wouldn't say that the Jets are the team. If you look at the Dolphins, the Dolphins were a drive away from beating the Bills in the playoffs. And if you would have had Tua out there, I think for damn sure you guys would have beaten us. You guys would have pretty much slaughtered us because we were playing like crap. And you guys have a really good roster. You have as good of a roster as the Jets, don't get me wrong. But I think the one thing that hurts the Dolphins versus all the other teams is, can Tua stay healthy? And that's one thing that concerns me about the Dolphins. But, if you had to ask me which team overall, I would say probably the Dolphins and then the Jets. But I think it's going to be really, really close. And I think it's going to be a four-man race. I really do. I think it's going to come down to the last couple of games of the year. I think the Patriots will be out of it first. And that's no disrespect to the Patriots. I think the Patriots are a really good team. But I just don't see them taking it to the next level. I think it's going to be the Bills winning the division. And it's going to come down to week 18. It's going to be a tight game. I just think the Buffalo, with everything that they had last year, all the emotions that they went through with, everything, even before the season, DeMar, you can talk about so many different things. I think now with all the distractions behind them, the Bills can focus on playing their type of football. And you have a defensive coordinator now who understands the game, and Sean McDermott. And don't get me wrong, Leslie Frazier was an awesome defensive coordinator. But I think that Sean McDermott's going to take them to the next level. And you have Leonard Floyd, you have Von Miller, who's coming back off of an injury. And there's so many weapons for the Bills that I think that we're just right now, we have the experience in the big moments versus the Jets or the Dolphins. And I think that that's what's going to take us to the next level. But don't get me wrong. I think that the Dolphins are right there. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. I think that they're going to surprise people. And I'm going to predict this, okay? Very early pick. I think the Dolphins will play the Chiefs in the playoffs in the first round. And I think the Dolphins will beat the Chiefs.
I like it.
So that's my prediction.
I like it.
I also predict that 3 teams in the AFC East will be in the playoffs.
I agree.
It's going to be the Jets, it's going to be the Dolphins, it's going to be the Bills. And I think that week 18 is going to come down to the Patriots being in it too. So I think you're going to be right there, guys. I don't think that there's going to be, a team that's going to run away with it anymore. And I think it's going to be that way for years. I do think times are going to change. I think it's going to be the Dolphins in a year. I think it's going to be the Jets coming up very shortly too. So that's just my opinion on that. But I'll go with my picks for offensive and defensive players, for hidden players. My offensive player, who is going to surprise you guys a little bit. I know that Jackson knows a little bit about this player because he went to Boise State. But I'm picking Khalil Shakir. And this is a name that not a lot of people know about. He was a big-time player in the playoffs for the Bills. He was a weapon that really needed to come out and have a big game. And he had a good game where he had over 60 yards in the game against the Bengals. But I just think that the Bills didn't give him enough opportunities on the field. They wanted to go with Jamison Crowder. They also wanted to go with Isaiah McKenzie. But now you bring in a guy who he can be a deep threat, and he can also be that slot position where he can catch the ball and use his yards after the catch to be a really good player. Now, if you had to guess what team had the worst yards after catch rate in the NFL, what team was it?
The Bills.
It was the Bills. Josh Allen does not like to throw the ball and give his receivers an opportunity to have yards after the catch. I think that's going to change this year. And he's going to utilize the middle of the field, and he's also going to utilize check downs to different receivers.
Let me ask you, Brett. Let me ask you: Does that go towards Josh Allen's accuracy? And I'm not saying that to to be an a-hole here, but like I feel like that's more of an accuracy problem on Josh Allen's part than anything else.
It's not an accuracy problem. It's more of an issue with him taking the check down.
Okay,
and that's what it comes down to. And I felt like last year the Bills were trying to press the ball down the field way too much. And now with guys like Khalil Shakur, you have Deontay Hardy, you have Dalton Kincaid that are coming in. I feel like now's the time where Buffalo's going to try and use those checkdowns and try and put the ball in their receivers' hands to just get upfield. And that's one thing that Buffalo struggled with, especially where they're trying to look at guys like James Cook, or they're trying to look at even Devin Singletary to get the first downs for them. Now you have a weapon in the middle of the field that can be a big-time playmaker. And I strongly believe that if Buffalo would have changed their game plan in the Cincinnati game, instead of trying to press the ball down the field as much as they did, and they would have saw the middle of the field being wide open the whole entire game, they would have came back and it would have been a more competitive game. I'm not saying that they would have won the game, but I think it would have been more competitive. But I just believe that second year with the Bills and Khalil Shakur, what he can do, his hands that he has, he's going to make an impact on this team. And I think that he will beat out Deontay Hardy for the slot position for the Bills. Let me turn it over to Jackson first for your thoughts on that.
I totally agree. And all the top NFL teams now, they got two weapons. They got two studs. And I'm not a huge Gabe Davis guy, so I like that Shakir pick. If he steps up, that could be a big game changer. And going to Boise State, I got a firsthand experience watching him on the field for 2 years. If they needed a 2-minute drill, he's getting the ball. 3rd and 10, he's getting the ball. Whenever there was a big moment, Khalil Shakir was there and he made a play. So I could see him having a big leap this year.
Yeah, Chris.
The pick I would have went with one of the Bills' offense definitely would have been Gabe Davis. I think Gabe Davis needs to step up and be that number 2. He had the chance, he had the potential, but I think he just didn't make the plays when it came down to it. And yeah, I think one of the biggest offensive struggles the Bills had last season was trying to force that ball to Stephon Diggs constantly, and it was bad plays on Josh Allen's part, bad plays at the offense that was riding up, and we saw Josh Allen take a drop, and his interceptions went up. So, I personally would have went with Gabe Davis to be that X factor and really move that offense.
Yeah, I thought about Gabe Davis, and I feel like he had a pretty decent year. Wasn't the best player, but I mean, catching 50% of his passes, that concerned me quite a bit. And I also thought about the offensive line. I thought about Spencer Brown and even guys like Damian Harris or even James Cook. But I just felt like with the slot position, I felt like that's the biggest position for the Bills, that we needed somebody to step up. And it's been since Cole Beasley left the Bills the first time, where we haven't had a guy in the middle of the field that can do the things that he did. So that's why I picked Khalil Shakur. But my defensive player, actually, Keith, I never gave you a shot, buddy. I skipped you, man. Go ahead, man.
Well, my X factor for the Bills would have been Spencer Brown. You guys need more production out of your offensive line. Spencer Brown really struggled for you guys last year. That being said, I like the Khalil Shakir pick. You need to replace Isaiah McKenzie somehow with certain players, and McKenzie was a good player for you guys. So I don't hate the Khalil Shakir pick, but I'm a big offensive line guy. I think I've made myself pretty clear about that over the past few episodes, and I think again for the Bills, Josh Allen hasn't been injury prone or anything like that, but he needs better protection up front. He doesn't. He needs to run less. He needs to stop running for his life because defenders are on him 2 seconds after he gets the football. And I think Spencer Brown was a big culprit of that last year, where guys were just blowing by him. So my pick would have been Spencer Brown, but I definitely like the Khalil Shakir pick.
Well, that's a really good point because when coverage was bad and the blocking was bad for the Bills, Josh Allen scrambled to his right, which is Spencer Brown's side.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that kind of concerned me a little bit was it seemed like he wasn't trusting Spencer Brown's blocking. And that's why he scrambled out to his right, gave him a little bit more time to be able to go after Stephon Diggs. Well, I think that now with Spencer coming off of his injury, he had a back injury. Now he's going to have training camp. He's going to be able to be fully healthy for the whole entire season. He can get back to his normal self, and he can come in and be a really good player. But also the Bills have another guy in Brandon Shell who's going to be the backup, as well as David Quesenberry, who I know you don't love Brandon Shell. Don't get me wrong. He's not your favorite player. You've talked about him quite a bit. But if Spencer Brown doesn't work out, you can bring in Brandon Shell.
Yeah.
Or you can bring in David Quesenberry. One of the two. And I felt like, I don't know if you guys watched a lot of the Bills games or not, but I felt like David Quesenberry, when his name was out there and he was blocking for the Bills, I felt like he did a damn good job. And there's times where he was hurt and he had a knee injury. And he was the last guy that we had for a tackle. And he stayed and played in the game because he knew that the Bills needed him. So he's a tough guy. He survived cancer, which, I give him a ton of credit for everything that he's been through in his life. He's a warrior, and he's somebody that I absolutely love. He's one of my favorite Bills players on the team just because of what he's been through. And he really represents what Buffalo is all about. So I would put it right up there as my number 2 spot would be Spencer Brown. Awesome. But for the defense,
Brett, can I ask you another question?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's say you're the Bills GM. Are you doing everything in your power to get DeAndre Hopkins to get that wide receiver too?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. If DeAndre was willing to come to Buffalo, absolutely. And I think right now it's down to the Titans or the Patriots. I think he's going to go to the Patriots, to be honest with you. I'm going to say that right now. I know that Chris is going to be fired up when he sees that Mac Jones is going to have to switch numbers. So
listen, I already said that the Patriots is taking a Super Bowl this year. That was my prediction on the earlier podcast.
I'm gonna say this: Mac Jones brings out the TB12. Watch and see. DeAndre Hopkins is going to get number 10, and then Mac Jones is going to wear TB12. Okay.
I don't know because Tom Brady is coming back home for his going away, inauguration or whatever you want to call it. His goodbye, his final goodbye. They having a retirement in Foxborough, so they might retire his jersey right there. So I don't know if they can give him 12.
We'll see. Hey, we'll see. But I'm just playing when I say that. I don't think it's gonna. He's gonna wear that. He's probably gonna wear like 4 or something like that. But, yeah. I would love to see DeAndre Hopkins on the Bills. Don't get me wrong. Do I think that he would help? Absolutely. I think that we're one player away on offense still. And this is after Dalton Kincaid and after Gabe Davis and everything. We're one player away from being a really dominant offense. But what happens is when we're in the regular season, we go after Stephon Diggs, we go after Gabe Davis, and they have really good games. But when it comes down to the playoffs and we're, the ball game's on the line, it just seems like the pressure gets too much, number 1, for Josh Allen. And number 2, the offense starts to crumble a little bit. So I would say one more weapon is great. You can never go wrong with it.
The lack of a running game, though. So I think
the lack of the running game has struggled. But that's why I think that this year for the Bills, going after guys like Damian Harris and going after Latavius Murray. I think that's the reason why Buffalo didn't go after a wide receiver, is because they're going to try and establish the run a little bit more. So, and that's one thing that Buffalo should have done more of last year, was running the ball, because we kind of played that K-gun offense that you saw in the 90s where we try and press the ball down the field, get that touchdown very early. But then what do other teams do? They start running the ball on us, and they start taking away Josh Allen. And Josh Allen's not on the field as much, and he doesn't get as many drives during the game. That's how you beat Buffalo. Because then when Josh comes back out there, he's thinking, oh, crap, I got to put up some big numbers because, I'm Josh Allen, and I have to put up 300 yards per game. So, you see him start pressing the ball down the field a little bit too much, and that's where the inconsistency comes in. But for me, for defense, though, I've thought about this one so much, and there's a ton of players that you can pick. Some of the guys that came up there for me, bigger names were, I would say Leonard Floyd. That was a big name that came up there for me. Everybody's going to think I'm going to say Dorian Williams. I know a lot of people would say that. But I think it really comes down to is the position that Buffalo has had some inconsistency with over the past couple of years, which is the number 2 cornerback position. We had guys like Levi Wallace who filled that position for a long time, but he really wasn't that X factor yet. And there's guys that filled in, Dane Jackson and everything. I think it really comes down to if Kaiir Elam can take that next step to being an elite cornerback in this league, and Tre'Davious White can be that other cornerback and be that all-pro type of player that he normally is, then this defense is going to be incredible next year. And I'm picking Kaiir Elam in this situation because I loved what I saw from him last year. I felt like he was really good in zone coverage. He was very good when he was asked to press, and I think that he can be the type of guy that can go toe-to-toe with either a number 1 or a number 2 cornerback in this, or wide receiver in this league. And I just want to see him take that next step and be able to have the consistency come into play and trust what he sees with his eyes and trust what he sees with the guy on the other side of the field. Because if he's going up against Tyreek Hill and he sees Tyreek Hill's hips, just watch his hips and go after Tyreek and play tight coverage. If he can do that and he can get the pass breakups and he can get interceptions and he can make an impact on this team, then this defense is going to go to the next level. And I just want to see the more consistency from him. But number 2 position for me would have to be Dorian Williams. But I know somebody's going to pick him. I know it's going to happen. So I'm just prepared for that. Let me turn it over to Chris first, and then I'll go with Keith second. Chris, let me know your thoughts on that pick.
Yeah, I agree with your pick. I agree. Bills did have a lot of defensive struggles. So, I think if they can get some earlier stops, like you said, if they can get some 4th and 0, some 3 and 0s, or 3 and outs, and force the offense and their opponents to, turn over that ball and give Josh Allen more possessions on the offense, then I think it definitely will bode well for them, and they'll get a lot more production. Maybe we'll see some, big offensive plays like Josh Allen was going for this season. So I agree with your pick completely.
Chris? Or I'm sorry, Keith. I'm sorry. Looking at the names wrong.
Dorian Williams is a good pick. Kaiir Elam is another good pick. I'm looking at Daquan Jones personally. I think Ed Oliver needs a running mate up front there to help solidify the middle of that defense. And, Daquan Jones is going to be that guy who's a very good player for Carolina. Kind of got lost in the shuffle because Carolina wasn't very good. They weren't a huge draw for anybody. But he's a good player, and he's a guy that Ed Oliver needs to give him a hand up the middle. But, you can't go wrong with Kaiir Elam as an X factor, or Dorian Williams. But I don't know if the Bills are going to be – I don't know if the Bills are going to be as reliant on their linebackers as they had been. I mean, I think after losing Tremaine Edmonds, they're kind of good with rolling with Matt Milano and more nickel packages, and try and do a little bit more blitzing. So, because that's what Sean McDermott likes to do is blitz. So I'm looking more towards Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, kind of solidifying the middle of that defense and allowing the rest of the defense to do their thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a tough choice because I like Daquan Jones, and I feel like he was the missing factor in the Cincinnati game. But I just feel like the number 2 cornerback position is just a bigger need for the Bills right now, and just to see some consistent play there. But it's going to be tough to see what either Dorian Williams, he's going to have to play a big role in this defense. But Daquan Jones, man, I want to see a little bit more consistency from him. But I felt like he had a really good season, though. Jackson, let me turn it over to you, man. Let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Brett. I think that cornerback 2 is a huge position with how there's multiple Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the AFC. You need some corners, you need some safeties to cover these guys. But another guy that might be a little under the radar, Von Miller. He's a Hall of Fame player. He's coming back from injury. You never know how they're going to respond to that.
Yep.
You need pass rush, and that pass rush is going to help that secondary as well, as we all know. So I think Von Miller is also a huge X factor because before he steps on that field, we don't know if he's going to be Von Miller or if he's going to be some bum. We don't know yet.
Yeah. So I went after this segment and everything, and I was thinking about, should I cover one position or should I cover one player? And when I was doing this, I was thinking about if I'm doing one position, what position am I going to pick? And I would have picked the defensive ends. I would have said every single defensive end not named Von Miller needs to step up this season. And I felt like there's been some really good players for the Bills that stepped up during the year. I felt like AJ Epinesa had a good year. I felt like Greg Rousseau had a pretty good year. But when it came down to the playoffs, that's when the big moments it felt like they got a little bit too big for the team. So I just want to see who can be that counterpart to Von Miller. And now I think that with bringing in Leonard Floyd, that's what's going to help us the most. So I think that kind of has been taken – the weight has been taken off our shoulders. So I just felt like, for me, it was the cornerback position, just covering that and seeing which guy out of the 2 in Kaiir Elam or Tre'Davious White, which one can come back and be the star cornerback for the Buffalo Bills, which we kind of needed last year. So that wraps it up for our guys for the X Factors. But let's open it up to talk about our teams a little bit more and the updates that are going on for each team. I'm going to start with Chris first, just because, we got to mess with Chris a little bit. He finished in last place in the division this past year, so got to mess with him a little bit. So, Chris, talk to us about any updates that are going on with the New England Patriots.
There hasn't been too many updates, still in that training camp. Mac Jones is working on his chemistry, which is why I'm looking at Tyquan Thornton as being like a big player who's going to step up. I was definitely a little surprised that they did cut James Robinson. I thought he'd be, more of a factor, and I thought he'd probably be that number 2 behind for Miles Stevenson. So, which is why I went with my running back for the X factor, because now at this point we just don't know who is going to be that number 2 running mate. So. We're looking forward to see Mac Jones develop that chemistry, how these new players, like Jackson brought up, those new players like Christian Gonzalez, trying to see how he's going to really acclimate into that defense and, what impact is he going to have. And, of course, we have Keon White, which is going to be our edge rusher. So I'm really interested to see if we can get pressure on both sides, because we have Matthew Judon, who I think is an absolute monster. You always see Matthew Judon with the red sleeves coming off the edge and ready to knock a quarterback's head off. So will he have a partner who's going to help put constant pressure on the quarterback during the season? Just kind of seeing how, like I said, one other thing, seeing who's going to really replace Devin McCourty and step up to be that safety for us. So outside of that, there's not too much major news. Hoping we can land DeAndre Hopkins. That'd be beautiful because we haven't had a big wide name receiver since Randy Moss and back in 2007, 2008. So it should be fun.
Yeah, hope that you guys can land DeAndre Hopkins, even though it'll hurt everybody else in the division. I just want to see the division be as competitive as possible. That's one thing I do like to see. So I hope that happens. Jackson, let me turn it over to you, man. Let me know what's going on with the Super Bowl champions.
So not much. We previously talked about it about a week or two ago. We got Chuck Clark injury news, and the Adrian Amos signing. And then Dalvin Cook's been liking tweets left and right about the Jets, Patriots, and Dolphins. So that's been a little interesting to watch. But today there's actually been a lot of rumors about the Jets being on the HBO Hard Knocks. So that would be exciting. And last time the Jets were on it was the only really good team I've seen. It was the last time we were in the championship game. So maybe we could do a little repeat of that. So, yeah, but nothing else. Yeah,
you got to have your snacks ready for the Hard Knocks episode. So
yeah,
just got to make sure of that. Keith, what's going on with the Dolphins right now? Any updates on? I know that you guys are battling with the Jets to get Dalvin Cook. Any other updates that are going on?
When it comes to Dalvin Cook, he's flirting with all these teams, trying to create a bidding war. He's not getting the numbers that he likes, and I think ultimately he will end up in Miami. I think he ultimately will, but the number has to be right. And I've said that all along. I'd like to have Dalvin Cook in the fold, as I'm sure Chris would, I'm sure Jackson would, but the number has to be right for all of us. Dalvin Cook's just trying to create a bidding war amongst all these teams to try and get somebody to sign him, for more money than he's been offered so far. So other than that, there's not been a lot of updates. Trill Williams has been doing some good things in camp. I've really liked what he's been doing. Chosen Anderson's been doing some good things in camp. So, I'm looking forward to training camp. I'm looking forward to football coming back, guys.
Yeah.
This has been a long summer already. It's only June.
I know. It feels like it's been forever, and there's been a lot of heartbreak for me being a Bills fan. Last year was harder than this past year, in my opinion, just because of the 13 seconds, everybody doing the memes and everything. I get that, but that was a hard year. And then this year, I kind of understood it that we weren't the best team out there on that day, and we should have lost that game. We definitely should have. But to be as close as we were and to not get it done, that's what hurts the most. So, it's just been tough. But, I don't know who's going to go after Dalvin Cook, but one of the two of you needed to freaking finish it up and get it done, because, there's a couple of other running backs that are out there. You can go after Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette as well. So I want to see where the market's going to be for the running backs. And, there's going to be an injury that comes up soon. I'm hoping it doesn't happen for any of our teams, though. But who's going to take the next running back off the board? That's going to be interesting to see. So, but for the Bills, a couple of news updates that are going on. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane signed a 2-year contract extension to stay with the Buffalo Bills through 2027. That's the biggest news that we had so far. We did start the groundbreaking for the stadium. They are pretty much doing the starting steel work on the stadium. That should be completed in 2026. And then other news that's going on, I mean, obviously everybody's heard about the Stephon Diggs stuff, so I'm going to stay out of that. Just not talk about that because we've already talked about that on my show as well. But the other news that I would say that's going on right now is there's one thing I wanted to talk about. I was trying to remember what it was, but I totally forgot. It was important too, and I totally forgot about it. I remember now. It was with Damar Hamlin. This offseason, he's working with the Red Cross to provide defibrillators to different schools. And I felt like that's something that was really good to hear about and to learn about, because I don't remember in school, and I know probably everybody would say the same thing, I don't remember any school that I went to or even visited that had a defibrillator in the school. Jackson, do you remember any?
Nope, there's never been one. Yeah, at least in college, maybe around, but in actually in our library we do have one at college, but in high school, middle school, nothing like that.
Keith, you probably never had one, did you?
No, there's one at my place of work right now, but not in school. I mean, and if there was one, we looked right through it.
Right. Chris, was there any?
Not that I could think of.
Yeah, I can't think of any of them, but I think this is something that has needed to happen for a long time. We needed an advocate for the American Heart Association, which is something that is, it doesn't get talked about enough. And, there's plenty of things that we could talk about more and more about, but for somebody to be an advocate for the safety and health of other people, I'm all on board when it comes to helping other people. So that's why, I feel like this is something that is going to be big. And if he can make an impact in a ton of other people's lives, I'm okay with it. I'm for it. So that's one thing that I was going to say. I have one last thing that I wanted to ask you guys real quick. I'm going to go around the board. I had one final question for each of you. And then when I do this, I'm going to ask you the final question. And then I want you to give your final thoughts as well. So I'm going to start with Jackson on this one. And my final question for you, man, is, so we've seen everything that has happened. We saw that Aaron Rodgers is coming to the New York Jets. What impact do you think that Aaron Rodgers coming to the Jets will have on Zach Wilson?
I think Zach Wilson has all of the physical talent in the world. He's a mental head case. He has no mental strength whatsoever. So I think if Aaron Rodgers is able to teach him how to read a defense, teach him not to freak out when a blitz is coming and actually how to read a blitz. But personally, I have absolutely zero faith in Zach Wilson. I saw him get the Jets offense 2 or 3 yards against the Patriots in week 10 or 11. I saw him overthrow screen passes. I have absolutely no faith in him. So after Aaron Rodgers, I am ready to move on to a new quarterback.
Do you think that he'll be traded this season?
I think he'll be traded next season, unless this preseason he absolutely balls out, which I don't really see happening. But I think he'll be traded for probably like a 5th or 6th round, not this season, but next season.
That's interesting. Any closing thoughts that you want to say?
I just want to thanks for having me on. I had a great time. It was really interesting to get different perspectives from all the AFC East teams, and I'm excited for a good football year. Excited for training camp to start. Finally get some news back, some highlights. Just can't wait for it all.
Now, Jackson, are you on any platforms on social media? Do you have your own show or anything like that?
Nothing like that. This is only my second time doing a YouTube show like this, so it's been a great experience, and definitely looking forward to doing something like this later on, especially because I got a Cowboys fan roommate and a Chargers fan roommate. I would love to start a podcast or a show with them. So it's so fun just talking about football, talking about sports. Can't get enough of it.
Definitely, man. I mean, you're a natural out here. Really appreciate you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hey, anytime you're more than welcome to come back. Personal Instagram that everybody can follow you on?
I'm not a social media person. I don't have any social media.
Wow. Hey.
Yeah.
Man.
From a very young age, I just try to stay away from that. I don't really agree with the whole social media aspect.
Hey, respect though. I respect you for that.
Yeah.
But, that's something that not a lot of people that are, as young as myself or you are, it's something that we don't talk about enough. So being off of social media, we're in the age of TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram, all the different ones that you can talk about. So it's good to see that you're not on there. It's a good way to get rid of the distractions. So
it's all negativity nowadays. It's not much benefits. There's no point.
No. There isn't. There really isn't.
Yeah,
but I agree with you. But Jackson, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate you for being here, man. Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. My question for you is, how much of a difference do you think this year the defense for the Patriots is going to be impacted because of Jonathan Jones' situation. Do you think that he'll be suspended for a long time, or do you think it's going to bleed into next season?
You know what? I'm not really sure. I think even if he does get suspended for a long time, one thing about the Patriots organization is that they've always managed to have really strong cornerbacks. So they're going to make it work. Even if you think about our cornerbacks with Stephon Gilmore, with was it JC Jones or JC Jackson that we had. We've always had some real studs at the CB. So. If it does happen, it happens. He's gonna have to deal with that. But as a part of being in the NFL, got to keep it professional. So I think regardless, our defense is so strong, and our defensive coordinators and our staff is so strong that we'll be okay. We won't. We won't be too hurt by a loss at the end of the day while he's dealing with his legal issues.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Are you on any social medias or anything? Is there anywhere we can find you?
No, I stay off of social medias like Jackson. So only thing I do is play my Xbox and go to the gym. So
is there a gamer tag that we can follow you on?
Yeah, it's actually NYZ Lethal King. So that's all one word, NYZ Lethal King, because I was born and raised in New York. So yeah, Xbox Live.
Okay, sweet. Well, any games do you play?
Call of Duty. That's it.
Okay. All right, you're gonna have some challengers off of this. Trust me,
We'll see.
Any closing thoughts that you have, though?
I can't. My only closing thoughts is I'm really excited to see what the change of pace with the new offensive coordinator and Bill O'Brien is really going to bring to our offensive firepower. I think Mac Jones is definitely have a chip on his shoulder, and he's got a lot to prove this year, and I think he's ready to step up. His third season, he had a little bit of a sophomore slump. He went from 22 touchdowns to 14 touchdowns last season, about 11 interceptions. So, wasn't really a good show, and he threw for 900 yards less. So I think now that we have, like I said, the offensive coordinator, and we have some more offensive weapons, and I think we're gonna have a really, really good season. A lot of people are doubting us, and I think the Patriots are gonna surprise a lot of people. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a really surprising year, but for the Patriots too. Chris, thank you so much for being on the podcast as well. Really do appreciate you, man. And that Pats Nation, that's not the Instagram account, though.
No, Pats Nation is just, that little hashtag,
Gotcha.
for all Patriots fan, Pats Nation, Pats.
Gotcha.
All day.
I thought for sure, I was looking at that and I'm going, is that the Instagram account for Pats Nation that you have there? So I was like, man, I was about to say, love the stuff that you guys are doing on Pats Nation, because I do follow them, not going to lie. I do follow them. So I thought for sure that you were the one that did it. I was going to say, great job, man. I was going to give you all the credit.
I wish.
Keith, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. Closing thoughts. But first, I got a question for you, man. And this is an important one because I'm going to start it off as a two-parter, okay? First question I have for you is, who's going to have the most sacks on the Dolphins next year?
Jalen Phillips, easily.
Jalen Phillips?
That's an easy answer.
Okay.
Jalen Phillips is going to pop off this season. He's going to the Pro Bowl.
How many sacks?
14.5.
Okay. All right. Now, my second question I have for you is, how does it feel to be the second best team in the division?
No, you know what? Right now, we are the second best team in the division. By the end of the season, I'm hoping we're the first. And I think it's very possible that we will be.
Hey, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Now, real talk, I was going to say, Keith, and everybody, you guys have done a phenomenal job on the show. It's been a really good show. I appreciate you guys. You got tons of comments that are here. You got Alan that's talking about you. Jake's talking about you as well. Everybody's saying that you guys did a really good show. And I just want to give you guys all the credit that you deserve. So really appreciate you guys for coming on. And it's always great to meet you guys. But Keith, let us know, where can we find you, man? Do you have a podcast or anything?
I'm not on social media either, but I'm going to start. Yeah, it's never really been my thing, but I I'm looking into doing my own thing as far as podcast goes. So I might just stay tuned for that kind of thing.
That sounds good. When you do have any information about the podcast or anything, let me know, because what I do is I will put it on all my social media platforms. I'll make sure that we get you some followers that come from the Go Bills podcast, as well as Nickel City Mafia, and even the AFC East Summit. I'll make sure that we get you some followers all the way around. But for myself, you know me.
Yep.
You know where to find me. I'm on all different social media platforms. But Keith, I want to give you one last second. Any closing thoughts do you have for the Dolphins?
No, I enjoy doing this show with you guys. Looking forward to next week's show, whatever we have in store for ourselves. And look, I'll see you guys next week. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm the Go Bills podcast. I'm Brett with the Go Bills podcast and one of the co-hosts of the AFC East Summit. This has been something that Mike Fortin and Jake Podger and even Sean, we've all collaborated with, tried to make this thing go on. And this has been a great thing that we started, because I know it's similar to the AFC East Roundtable. We've had a ton of people talk about it. We've gotten comments saying, oh, you guys are just copying the AFC East Roundtable and everything. To some degree, maybe we are. I'm not gonna lie and say that we're not. We're at the point for our show where we're not going to get a seat at that table. So, Keith's not going to get a seat. Chris isn't going to get a seat. Jackson isn't going to get a seat. So we started our own. And while it's similar to them, we're not going to try and copy anything that they're doing. If we do, we apologize for that. That's not what we're trying to do whatsoever. We're trying to make our own show. We're trying to do our own thing. So that's what we're trying to do here. And, we're just passionate fans of the game. We love talking about our teams. That's what we're trying to do. Yep. So that's what I'm going to say about that. You can find me on all different social media platforms. I probably have more accounts than you can find for all three of these guys. I add my accounts to these guys, and I will still have 2 accounts for each one of you. I have 8 Instagram accounts that I run. I have a Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagrams, everything you name it, I have it pretty much. My own website that we do for Go Bills podcast. But before I even say anything about that for me, make sure you follow the AFC East Summit. Make sure you follow Nickel City Mafia, Red, White, and Bills, Go Bills podcast. And I was going to say follow you guys, but sadly you don't have Instagrams or any type of social media platforms. What we'll do is I'll make sure that I put in the comments your numbers so that everybody can reach out to you, and you can have a million different people call you. I'll make sure I do that for each one of you guys. But again, really appreciate you guys for coming on. This has been the AFC East Summit. We will see you next week for another edition of the AFC East Summit. For Chris, Jackson, and Keith, I'm Brett, and we will see you next week. As always, go Bills.
Go Fins.
Pats Nation.
Go Jets.
See you guys.